to ask about Burundi and Cameroon, but first just on this announcement of Louise Arbour. I'd asked you before, I guess, whether she would get the job, and it was said that the Secretary General had to go first to ACABQ, and there was no description of how many posts are in this job. Can you announce, now that you've made the announcement, how big is the office? Has ACABQ itself signed off on it? Has the Fifth Committee? And what more can you say about what this entity is going to be?
Well, I think we're going to have more details once she's in place and can get her office together. We did get approval just recently from the Advisory Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Questions, and so they have approved her position, and that's why we were able to go ahead with this right now.
Is that report public? Has the ACABQ, has they issued a report on the proposal?
You'd have to ask the ACABQ. The committee itself agreed, I believe, just yesterday on this proposal.
Right, but can you make public what you submitted to them, i.e., what the proposal is? It seems like it's a pretty straightforward question.
We've made it available to the member states, so they already have it.
The Vice President of Burundi, I know that the Council's meeting on it, but publicly and as published in the government-friendly press in Burundi, he's asked that all UN staff currently in Burundi be switched over, saying that they all have the wrong impression of the country. So I wanted to know, one, do you have a response? And two, can you say how many UN staff there are? I know that there have been some problems of getting visas and getting people in, but how many UN staff are currently there, and what's your response to the first Vice President of the country saying they should all be changed?
Well, first of all, we believe that our staff needs to be able to go about their work without hindrance. And this has been an important thing to underline, is our staff does impartial work, and they are supposed to go about it without hindrance. We are aware that staff from UN agencies have sometimes experienced delays in receiving their visas, and that's interrupted their work. And some of them, there are some cases that have been pending for months at a time, and we once more urge the Burundian Authority to facilitate the granting of visas for staff and to allow all staff to go about their work.
And I wanted to ask you on Cameroon, thanks for the answer you sent about Mr. Lansani Fall saying that he would raise issues to the authorities. Can you say whether the issue of the internet being off in 2 provinces for 52 days has been raised? And secondarily, I wanted to ask you this. You announced from this podium that Najat Roshdi is going to Central African Republic as resident coordinator. What's the process to appoint a new resident coordinator for the UN system in Cameroon? And can it be public in any way? It seems many people have complained that while she was there, she never raised the Anglophone issue. And in fact, I found that she blocks inner city press on Twitter, so I'm unable to ask her why this issue has not been raised. But what's the process to replace? And you can smirk, but should a UN official in their official account?
That's an unrelated thing. I mean, obviously, all individuals, not even just all the UN officials, are free to block whoever they want on Twitter. That's within their rights.
Including missions. So you think a peacekeeping mission should pick and choose which media can follow it?
Organizations are supposed to respond to press requests. Individuals can do whatever they like with their Twitter accounts.
What's the process of replacing the resident coordinator in Cameroon?
It's the same as in any other place. There's a process that you go through, and the resident coordinator selection process is supervised by the UN Development Program.
I have but I wanted to know. Yesterday, I'd asked you about this situation at the UNMISS camp in Juba, and the school, the exams for secondary schooling in South Sudan. And the government saying that people have to leave the camp. Have you been able to get the answer of UNMISS on that?
No, I've asked for an answer from UNMISS. I don't have anything just yet. This is about different exams, and we'll have to see whether there's any effort being made to pursue an alternative that would be more convenient for the students themselves.
Right. What they're saying is it's an ethnic problem, that most of the children in the camp are afraid of the largely Dinka forces, and that's why it seems like the UN, basically the time to take the exam is expiring. That's why I'm asking you again today.
Well, we'll see what efforts are being made on the ground to help resolve that.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press, on behalf of the Free UN Coalition for Access. Thanks a lot for the briefing. I wanted to ask you about the specific, and recently there was a rotation of the Burundian peacekeepers in CAR. 800 left, 800 came in. And I'm aware that there was communications from the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights basically suggesting and urging that they not be redeployed because of human rights issues in Burundi, and also because of 25 cases of alleged sexual abuse where the people have been repatriated for trial. So I guess what I'm wondering is, it seemed, my understanding of that case is that DPKO overrode or maybe it was DFS. Maybe you could, it was overridden and they were sent. And some people are saying, if the policy or if this new energy has meaning, how did this rotation take place? How would the new policy, maybe this is the better question, how would the new policy enunciated today apply to 25 cases out of 800? Is that considered a high number? Would that be enough to either not pay or to repatriate? And then just because we have you here, Ms. Buttenheim, I wanted to ask there seems to be it's a related but a larger point of kind of how fast does DFS or the missions investigate things. There was a case brought up here about in Cyprus where there's video of, admittedly, it's a small number of 3 peacekeepers seemingly to steal a watch in the Turkish Cypriot side of the island. But so we've asked a number of times, like, what's happening? They say, we're investigating. And I understand there's due process, but it's a video case. So what is the process for a mission like UNFICYP to actually act on videotaped wrongdoing that takes place under its watch? I know there's 2 separate questions.
First of all, in the case of CAR and Burundi, no, this matter is still very closely being studied. A decision was made to rotate those troops. However, you should be aware that the Burundian authorities appointed a national investigative officer who has worked very, very closely with us. DFS has been continuously in contact with the ambassador of Burundi, and on the ground, OIOS sent a delegation that spent about 4 months out there last summer, gathering information, interviewing witnesses and victims, as well as gathering as much information as they could. And Burundi has invited OIOS to discuss further with them. So I think you should be aware that until now we have not been in a position to decide whether Burundi itself should continue to be there or not. So we are awaiting the finalization of that particular case. Something that we follow very, very closely, and I want you to be aware we didn't drop the ball at all, but we're also consulting with the Burundian authorities. Secondly, just so you're aware, when there's an allegation concerning uniformed personnel, the minute that we receive information from our missions on the ground, we send, and it's sort of prima facie evidence in regard to an allegation. We send a note verbal to that permanent mission practically within the day, or maybe the next day. It's quite fast, and the response time of member states now is much, much higher. We've asked, and the memorandum of understanding that they sign on when they deploy as peacekeepers, in agreement with the UN to go to a country, they have up to 10 days to respond, and now the tendency is to reply within 5 days. So I think this is important to see that they're actually cooperating. The other thing I wanted to say, just to come to UNFICYP, and I have to be honest with you, this particular case, I feel embarrassed that I'm not aware of it. You're drawing it to my attention because I know that mission quite well, and I would like to use this opportunity to say that all these efforts about prevention, risk assessment, establishing sexual exploitation and abuse task force, integrated task forces with all representation across the mission, the police advisor, the force commander, the head of mission, the country team. Cyprus is much smaller, but needless to say, we took this enormously seriously. And we had in that country 12 troop contributors and 14 police contributors, and they had training, pre-deployment training, in-mission training, repeated training that the sector commanders got, training of trainers. Because we have Spanish-speaking colleagues there from Argentina, we gave training in Spanish as well. And I think that this helped enormously to draw attention to the problem, because even though Cyprus is a developed country but it's a holiday destination, we have the same rules and regulations there as we do in countries that are with people in much more impoverished and vulnerable situations. But I'm afraid I can't answer that last question.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for this opportunity. I've noticed in the report there's a section on international forces operating under a Security Council mandate, non-UN forces. So what comes to mind is the Sangaris force in the Central African Republic, the French troops. And I think my question is as follows. It seems like many people believe that Anders Kompass was unjustly retaliated against and fired for having gone public with sexual abuse of minors, reports of sexual abuse of minors in CAR. So how does the whistleblower protection new policy and in some way relate to this, given the nexus between people in the system actually reporting what's known or going public if they think nothing will be done? And is there, this may be for the chef de cabinet, is there any, a number of the candidates when people were running for Secretary General even brought up the case of Mr. Kompass. Is there any thinking of the 38th floor currently of how, whether that was dealt with in an appropriate way, and whether there's any kind of lessons learned from a person that blew the whistle on child sexual abuse, having been essentially thrown to the curb and retaliated against, he believes? Thanks.
Thank you, Matthew. I was actually part of the group that developed the new whistleblower policy, so perhaps it's best that I answer that. There is in the new whistleblower policy a section that deals specifically with reporting incidents of non-UN personnel. So that would include the example that you're talking about, and that UN staff who do report such incidents can ask for whistleblower protection. We were very cognizant when we were developing the whistleblower policy, and I think the new one is a much stronger policy, is that the bottom line with the whistleblower policy is however strong your whistleblower policy is, it's really the culture and how that policy is enacted within the organization that is most important. And I think the Secretary General has made it very, very clear that he wants people to come forward and to blow the whistle where there is wrongdoing in the UN. He wants complete transparency, and it's the same with cases of SEA. We will protect whistleblowers. Thank you.
If there are no further questions, I'd like to once more to thank the panel. And again, there are handouts near the door for those who want any further information. Thank you all for coming, and have a good afternoon. Thanks.